it's kind of a biopic, but it's the actual musicians, and maybe none of it happened. It's Kneecap.
So we got such a clamor for Kneecap that we knew we had to review it. And no, this is not a documentary about my skiing accident. This is much more interesting and better made. So thanks for being here, you guys. Subscribe if you have not, because this is exactly the kind of cool, daring little indie that we love around here at Breakfast All Day.
Kneecap, so-called Irish language rappers promoting antisocial behavior and violence.
I'm going to try really hard not to massacre these guys' names, because they are important and they are at the center of this film, and they are the members of Kneecap. The members of Kneecap, this Irish rap trio, they play themselves. They are Mo Chara, DJ Próvai, and Móglaí Bap. And DJ Próvai is the one in the balaclava. He is the DJ, hence the name. And it's about how they found each other and started making music. And as you said, Alonso, like, who knows what's true and what's not, right? And it doesn't even matter. It's kind of like their A Hard Day's Night, right? Like there's the mixture of the truth with some fanciful storytelling, and it doesn't really matter what's true and what's not. The fact that it's about them finding each other and getting their music out there at a place and a time in Northern Ireland where there was some oppression on certain kinds of expression, artistic expression, and so what they're doing,
language itself,
and language, and so what they're doing is, as so much art is, inherently a political act. It's entertaining as hell, it's thrilling, but it's also their statement against the world in which they live. DJ Próvai is a mild-mannered music teacher at this school, and he is also fluent in Irish. This is a whole important point here. Who speaks English? Who speaks Irish? And when do people choose to use that language? The idea of Irish becoming, you know, a nationally recognized language and an assertion of cultural identity. And so he is called in to translate for this young man whom the police pick up, and in the process finds that he's carrying this little notebook, and he realizes, oh, it's lyrics. And they're exciting, and he hears a beat in his head to them and takes it upon himself to like start making songs with them. Michael Fassbender is the dad to Móglaí Bap, and he is a dissident in his own way. I will say he is taking his own stand in his own way. Again, like, who knows what's real and what's not? I do not know, but this is the story they tell. Michael Fassbender's figure looms large over this, even when he is not around. And so it's how these two childhood friends meet up with this DJ, and they all start making music together. And those early gigs they play feel like what it must have been like to discover punk, right? Like to go see like the Clash for the first time at some small club, because as the songs get picked up, you know, by word of mouth on the street by the kids, it's just this infectious fervor, and it's this expression of pent up frustration, rebellion. It's what rock music should do. It's what rap inherently has always done as a political statement. So I just thought this was thrilling, both in terms of how good these guys are. Like, they're not actors. They're playing themselves, and you can't assume that that's easy or something that comes naturally. They're all really charismatic. There's a playfulness to the form and the tone in terms of narration, in terms of animation style. So it's totally alive and constantly evolving in ways that are really fresh and exciting. I saw this in a theater by myself, like in the middle of the day on a weekday, and was laughing my ass off by myself in this theater. So I hope people are seeing it in your theater where you are, because I thought this was great.
Well, I saw it in a fairly full theater. It was a small one, but it was pretty full. And I feel like everybody else in the theater besides Dave and me was Irish, because they were laughing at stuff that was sailing right over our heads.
Interesting.
I don't know if it was specific reference points or, you know, sort of specifics about like daily life or politics or language or whatever, but definitely stuff we were missing. And also I found it, you know, thankfully they subtitle all of the Irish, but I found a lot of the English hard to understand. I don't know if that's just my bad hearing or my being used to, like, if I'm watching a Neil Jordan movie at home, I'm putting those captions on, you know. But I found some of the accents a little indecipherable at times. So I feel like there's a good third of this movie that I'm like guessing what they were saying, you know. I agree with you. Like, when this movie is at its peak, it is so vibrant and so exciting, and the director Rich Peppiatt really knows how to shoot the musical sequences in an exciting way and incorporate the like on-screen English translations, but animated as a sort of a handwriting thing, like they were coming out of the Notebook or whatever. That's all really vivid and fun. I love the whole sort of political point of the idea of like keeping a language alive is part of the kind of anti-colonial battle. You know, in Spain, the Catalan, the Basques, you know, they are very much fighting against being crushed by everybody being forced by the government to speak Castilian. And, you know, in this country, certainly with the native populations, you know, the indigenous populations, we wiped out who knows how many languages. But, you know, there's also this effort to keep them alive. And one way to keep them alive with young people is through hip hop, because early on you see the teacher doing the Irish class and like all of the sentences are about like agrarianism, you know, like cutting the loam or whatever, you know. And so, but this makes it direct and relevant and exciting. And so as a political blow, like I find all of that really cool. I wish this movie were consistently as good as its best parts. I think it does kind of slump, whether it's the musical moments or some of the, you know, where they're like running from both the authorities and like other Irish Republicans who want to exploit them for whatever reasons, you know, or the drug stuff, you know, like when it pops. And then I can feel there were moments where I kind of felt like waiting for it to rev up again, which it inevitably would. But yeah, I'd say it's worth seeing for those best parts because there's a lot of them.
Yeah, the thrill of creation, right? Like once they are like connecting, even when it's with cheap, decades old equipment, you know, like that's really fun to feel like you're in the room with them. You feel that energy and that jolt of excitement. It does get a little bogged down with like whether he can keep his job as a teacher or pursue his, you know, career path. And also we kind of know how that shakes out.
Yeah,
because he's here doing this thing now.
It's funny, the night before watching this, I was at a friend's house and we watched, there's a new 4K of Can't Stop the Music, which is a legendarily terrible movie that I love, but it also is it's an origin story of a music group with the group playing themselves. And so that's a weird connection between these two things. But yeah, this is, you're right, more in the Hard Day's Night category, and certainly with that same sense of exuberance at its best, you know, pieces.
But also the fact that like they have just the chutzpah to do that at this point in their career. I mean, the earliest performances we're seeing only go back 5 years. Yeah. You know, like most biopics we see, it's like, it's Walk the Line, it's Coal Miner's Daughter, it's Ray, people who either have been around for a long time or are already deceased, you know, Bob Marley. So to see that it is so recent and so new and that they are daring to play themselves and that it works so well, all of that is really exciting. I mean I've seen the comparison to Train Spotting quite a bit in terms
there's a lot of Train Spotting in this movie.
A lot of drugs and a lot of like just the way it's cut and the narration feels like Train Spotting. And some of the camera angles like underneath the table when they're doing lines like but I feel like it's its own thing culturally and musically, and that differentiates it.
There, as Dave puts it, there's a lot of Danny Boyle in this movie and a little John Carney.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like Sing Street, like the joy of like, let's put together a band.
Yeah, for sure. But, you know, I think this, you know, we talk about A Hard Day's Night, and there is that tradition of those movies where bands would play themselves, whether it was about their own creation or just sort of putting them out in the world. So like, you know, the Mrs. Brown, You've Got a Lovely Daughter, or Having a Wild Weekend, like that was a whole kind of subgenre, especially during the British invasion. And so I think it's kind of hearkening back to that. But at the same time, because I think they're very popular among the people who love them, but I'm sure there are giant swaths of the world that has no idea that there's such a thing as Irish language hip hop. You know, we get to discover that for the first time over the course of this movie. So in a way, they're sort of cementing their own legacy, which is which is fun. And you're right, it is ballsy.
And the songs are catchy as hell.
Yeah.
Like, I had never heard of this band. I will admit that. And at first I'm like, oh, they're like Irish Beastie Boys. But, but there's more to it than that. They are more specific than that. And it's exciting. So I'm really glad that I saw this. What is your number?
I'll say like a 7.2. Again, I wish I constantly loved it as much as I loved it in the parts that I think were the best. But again, those parts make it absolutely worth seeing.
Yeah. I'm gonna say like a 9 because I loved it, and it might be possible top 10 material. Like
all right.
Michael Fassbender's great in it. Simone Kirby is great in it as his ex current wife. So
Right.
everyone's good. Kneecap, if it's still around near you, go check it out.